Okay, everybody, my name is Lyle, and welcome to the channel. So we have a reaction video for us today. This is 20 cheap breakfasts from the 1950s that fed America before cereal took over. So let's jump in and let's have a look at this one.
In 1952, a mother in eastern Kentucky fed her husband and 3 children breakfast for 9 cents.
Damn.
9 cents. She used cornmeal, bacon grease, and a single egg stretched across 4 plates. Today, that same family spends $12 on a box of cereal that is 60% sugar and gone by Thursday. But here is what nobody talks about. Number 15 on this list was so nutritionally dense that the USDA quietly recommended it to low-income families during the Korean War, while simultaneously allowing cereal companies to market sugared grain to those same families as a modern upgrade. Number 6 involves a chemical reaction that food scientists at 2 major universities have spent years trying to replicate and still cannot fully explain. These 20 breakfasts fed America through the Depression, through 2 wars, through layoffs and droughts, and through winters when the coal ran out before February did. They cost almost nothing. They kept men working 12-hour shifts and children walking 3 miles to school on full stomachs. And every single one of them vanished because corporations spent billions convincing your grandmother that standing at a stove made her old-fashioned. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 20 smartest poor man breakfasts that disappeared from American kitchens. Number 20, bread and bacon grease. Before butter was affordable for work.
Not so much bacon grease. You know, we grew up pretty poor here in Australia. Bread and lard, for sure. Bread and lard. Couldn't always afford butter, but definitely the lard. Not so much bacon grease. Same thing, really. It's just fat, you know, that you've collected and it's solidified. So, okay, I can understand that one.
Bread and bacon grease. Before butter was affordable for working families, bacon grease was the spread that started every morning in America. Mothers kept every drop of rendered fat in a coffee can beside the stove, a practice so universal that the can itself became a piece of kitchen furniture. A thick slice of white bread, a generous spoonful of warm drippings, a shake of salt. That was breakfast. A loaf of bread cost 14 cents in 1952.
Damn.
The grease
14 cents. What is it now? I think I pay $5.50 for bread. It's bloody, for a loaf of bloody bread, it's ridiculous. Bloody ridiculous.
A loaf of bread cost 14 cents in 1952. The grease was free, salvaged from Sunday's bacon that a modern kitchen would pour down the drain without a second thought.
Oh, no. Don't pour grease or oil down a drain. Don't do that. That's not good. That's not good.
Sunday's bacon that a modern kitchen would pour down the drain without a second thought.
No.
The flavor was smoky and salty and deeply savory in a way that margarine on toast has never once managed. Nutritionists spent the 1970s convincing America that animal fat was the enemy, and the coffee can vanished from stovetops almost overnight. The science that killed it has since been substantially revised. We discarded both the flavor and the tradition based on conclusions that turned out to be incomplete. Number 19, cornmeal mush. Across Appalachia and the rural South, the morning began with a pot of cornmeal mush, thick enough to hold a spoon upright. Stirred slowly into boiling salted water and cooked until smooth and creamy, it was served hot with sorghum molasses or a splash of buttermilk. A 5-pound sack of cornmeal cost about 20 cents in 1954 and produced 2 weeks of breakfast. Coal miners ate it before descending. Children scraped their bowls and said nothing because saying nothing was how you asked for more without asking. Leftover mush went into a loaf pan overnight and became the next morning's fried mush, sliced thick and crisped in lard until the outside shattered and the inside stayed warm and soft. That fried version, served alongside an egg, was Saturday morning's reward for a week of plain porridge. Today, instant oatmeal packets have replaced it entirely.
So wait, they're saying cornmeal mush is kind of like porridge. I grew up in porridge. I'm Scottish with Scottish parents. We had porridge almost every day. Okay, so I guess it's kind of like the same thing.
Today, instant oatmeal packets have replaced it entirely. A breakfast that cost 1 cent per serving was traded for one that costs $1 and delivers half the nutrition and none of the history.
Okay.
Number 18, tomato gravy over biscuits.
Nope.
In the Ozarks and across the Upper South, tomato gravy was what you made when the pantry held nothing but a can of tomatoes and a jar of bacon drippings. A simple roux was cooked until golden, then a can of stewed tomatoes was stirred in until the whole thing thickened into something bright, tangy, and rich. Ladled over split biscuits, it was a complete breakfast for a table of 6 that cost less than 15 cents. The acidity of the tomatoes cut through the fat of the roux, in a combination that tasted far more considered than its circumstances had any right to produce. Food historians at the University of Mississippi have described tomato gravy as one of the most significant lost dishes in American culinary tradition. It fed millions of people through the worst decades of the 20th.
I'm sure somebody's suggested I don't do tomatoes at all. I don't like tomatoes. I'm sure somebody's suggested tomato gravy in one of my videos when I made biscuits and gravy. I'm sure somebody suggested that. So I'm assuming they still make it. Let me know. Let me know in the comment section.
Culinary tradition. It fed millions of people through the worst decades of the 20th century, and almost nobody under 60 has ever tasted it. Number 17, milk toast. When the money ran out before the week did, mothers made milk toast. A slice of bread toasted lightly, buttered, placed in a bowl, and covered with warm milk seasoned with a pinch of salt and the smallest possible spoonful of sugar. The bread softened into the milk and turned into something between porridge and pudding, warm and simple, asking nothing of the stomach it was filling. A quart of milk cost about 20 cents in the 1950s. Combined with day-old bread from the bakery outlet, it fed children with upset stomachs and adults with...
Is that the preamble to French toast? Is that how it kind of came about? I've never heard that. Bread. Well, I guess bread and milk is, I guess it's
empty wallets with equal gentleness. By the 1970s, it had been entirely replaced by canned soup and crackers, which cost more and tasted worse. Anyone who grew up eating milk toast will tell you that nothing made since has replicated its specific quiet comfort on a cold morning when everything else felt like too much. Number 16, fried egg sandwich. Not the version on Instagram with avocado and a price tag that would have fed a 1950s family for 2 days. The original. 1 egg fried in bacon grease until the edges laced brown and crisp, slapped between 2 slices of white bread with salt and pepper, and...
Who doesn't have fried egg sandwich anymore? I mean, I just had eggs today. Granted, it wasn't fried and on bread, but yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know how much of these are true. I think we got to take all this with a pinch of salt, pardon the pun. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's still popular. A fried egg on some toast and some bread. Yeah.
Nothing else.
Okay.
Eggs cost about 60 cents a dozen in 1956, making 1 egg per sandwich the cheapest complete protein breakfast a mother could put on the table. Factory workers ate them wrapped in newspaper on the bus. The bread soaked up the broken yolk and the fat from the pan and turned the whole thing into something unified and satisfying in a way that no amount of artisan bread has since improved upon. The fried eggs...
The way his cadence of his speech, I don't know if it's AI or it's a natural person, but the music in the background makes it seem like it's so dire and doom and gloom, and it's sort of like... Okay, let's just lighten up a little bit in the video.
No amount of artisan bread has since improved upon. The fried egg sandwich has been repackaged as a gourmet item and priced at $8 in cities where nobody remembers it was once the cheapest meal in the kitchen. Here is the part of this story that the cereal industry has spent 70 years hoping you would never piece together. In the mid-1950s, Kellogg's and General Mills launched coordinated national advertising campaigns that did not simply promote their products. They promoted an idea that modern mothers served cereal and old-fashioned mothers stood over a hot stove. The message was targeted at exactly the women who were making biscuits and gravy and cornmeal mush every morning. Within a single...
Jesus, you know what? Now that I've tasted biscuits and gravy, we've never had them in Australia. I've never tasted it. Nobody that I know of ever makes it. I would have that every bloody morning. If my mother made that every morning, oh man, that would be absolutely bloody delicious. Much better than any cereal you could get. I don't think I'd make it to 20, but it would be bloody delicious. I tell you what, that meal, it doesn't look very nice. There's not much in it, but God, it's so tasty. So bloody tasty.
We're making biscuits and gravy and cornmeal mush
every day
morning.
I'd eat that.
Within a single generation, breakfasts that had sustained American families for 100 years were reclassified as inconvenient and inferior. Those companies made billions. The families who stopped cooking from scratch paid more for less nutrition and lost knowledge that had taken generations to accumulate. Sawmill gravy contains flour, fat, and milk. Cornflakes contains 17 ingredients, including 3 forms of sugar. We were told that was an upgrade. The people who told us that were selling the cornflakes.
But they're also selling that life on the go, you know. Oh, you're a modern woman. You're too busy to be cooking and whatever else. And the kids are too busy to be sitting there, eating fried food and whatever else in the morning. And, nobody's got time. You got to go. That hustle. I think that comes into it. And if you've ever watched any American movie where they have breakfast, the mothers put on this massive spread and they take one bit of a bite of a toast and say, look, I'm too late. I got to go. It's like, every bloody movie you see. It's crazy. But I can understand that, that on the go, cereal's very quick, pour in a bowl, pour some milk, and you're off. I think now the times are changing. A lot less people are eating cereal, that's for sure.
That was an upgrade. The people who told us that were selling the cornflakes. Number 15, red-eye gravy and biscuits. Country ham sliced thin, fried hard in a cast iron skillet. Then the pan deglazed with black coffee while still screaming hot. That was red-eye gravy.
People have told me to make red-eye gravy too. That's got coffee in it? Oh, I really need to look into that one too.
The name came from the reddish ring of fat that formed in the center as it settled. Split open a fresh buttermilk biscuit and ladle that thin, salty coffee touched gravy over the top. The flavor was bitter, savory, and smoky all at once, in a combination that woke a person up more effectively than the coffee alone. Country ham cost about 40 cents a pound in 1954, but a single slice flavored an entire pan. The biscuits were already made. The whole breakfast fed a family of 6 for under a quarter.
Damn.
Red-eye gravy cannot be found in any chain restaurant in America today. It is too
true?
regional, too simple, and too tied to a way of cooking that requires a properly seasoned cast iron pan and the knowledge of how to use one. Both disappeared together. Number 14.
Hang on. Cast iron pans disappeared? I have one myself. And I know how to season it properly. Okay. I think a little bit more doom and gloom in this video. Okay.
Use one. Both disappeared together. Number 14.
Okay.
Johnny cakes. Ground cornmeal mixed with boiling water and salt, shaped into flat rounds, and fried on a greased griddle until the outside went crisp and golden, while the inside stayed soft and almost creamy. Johnny cakes traced their lineage to Native American cooking and survived virtually unchanged in New England farm kitchens and Appalachian households for 300 years. In 1953, a plate of Johnny cakes with sorghum syrup cost less than a nickel to produce. Children ate them with their fingers, burning their fingertips on the crisp edges, and not stopping. Then pancake mix in a box arrived, promising the same result with less effort, and Johnny cakes were gone from most American kitchens within a decade. The replacement cost more money and produced something that tasted of nothing in particular. We called that progress and meant it at the time. Number 13. Leftover potato cakes. Nothing left a 1950s kitchen without being accounted for. Last night's boiled potatoes were mashed cold with
bubble and squeak, we call them in Scotland. Delicious. Used to have them every Monday. Delicious after Sunday night meal. Every Sunday, we would have a roast, Sunday night dinner. Might not be a roast, might just be whatever it is, but always have bubble and squeak.
The beaten egg, a spoonful of flour, and salt formed into flat patties and fried in bacon grease until the outsides turned crackling brown.
Yep.
Potatoes cost about 4 cents a pound in 1955. The egg and flour added almost nothing to the cost. The whole breakfast came from food already paid for the night before. Children fought over the crispiest cakes without knowing they were eating what most modern families throw directly into the trash.
Pretty much.
This was not frugality as a philosophy. It was frugality as a reflex, built so deeply into the rhythm of the kitchen that wasting food was not even a decision that presented itself. Number 12. Coffee soup. In Scandinavian American communities across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Dakotas, breakfast was stale bread torn into chunks in a bowl, covered with hot black coffee and topped with cream and sugar. Swedish and Norwegian immigrants had brought this from the old country, and it survived in farmhouse kitchens across the upper Midwest through the 1950s.
I drink coffee every day. I love coffee, coffee soup? Okay. Never heard of it.
In farmhouse kitchens across the upper Midwest through the 1950s. The coffee softened the bread into a warm, sweetened mush that children genuinely loved. It used bread on its way to being wasted. It cost almost nothing. It delivered caffeine to adults and calories to children from the same bowl. When packaged donuts and toaster pastries reached rural Minnesota, coffee soup disappeared within a generation. Nobody thought it was worth writing down because everyone assumed everyone already knew. That assumption was the whole problem. Here is something that requires saying directly. The breakfasts on this list were not eaten because they were delicious, although most of them were. They were eaten because they were possible. A mother with 9 cents and 4 hungry people at the table did not have the luxury of preference. She had the obligation of ingenuity. And what she produced from cornmeal and bacon grease and yesterday's potatoes fed families who grew up to build roads and fight wars and raise children who eventually forgot what they had been fed and why it mattered. The forgetting was not accidental. It was engineered. What was lost was not just a set of recipes. It was a specific kind of knowledge about how to feed people well with almost nothing. That knowledge is worth more right now than it has been at any point since the families who held it finally could afford to put it down.
Do you know what? I can't agree with that statement. Everything we know is getting so expensive. Eggs are here in Australia. I think we pay a touch over $6 for eggs for a dozen. It depends what eggs you get too, organic eggs are, $12, $13 a dozen, whatever it is. But I can understand that making things that you have available and doing, these recipes from, another era where you use it all up. Man, if I threw food away when I was a kid, you would not be able to sit down for a week because everything gets used, everything. But I can understand that with everything going up and will continue to go up in the world, I could see maybe not all of it, but I could definitely see people, being a bit more food and waste wise. Hopefully, anyway, I'm hoping.
The families who held it finally could afford to put it down. Number 11, Scrapple. In Pennsylvania Dutch country, Scrapple was not just breakfast, it was identity. Pork scraps, liver, and cornmeal combined into a loaf, chilled solid overnight, sliced thick, and fried until the outside shattered and the inside stayed soft and savory. Every part of the animal went in. Scrapple sold for about 20 cents a pound in 1955, cheaper than bacon, and substantially more filling. The smell of it frying on a Saturday morning drifted through screen doors and across front porches with a specificity that belonged entirely to that place and that tradition. When independent butchers closed and supermarket chains took over, Scrapple could not scale. The frozen versions that appeared later insulted the original. As they closed, the recipe closed with them. Grits cooked slowly in salted water until creamy and dense, then topped with the same ham and coffee gravy from the cast iron skillet. The grits absorbed the salty, bitter gravy, and every spoonful delivered a combination of textures and flavors that the modern breakfast table does not contain. A pound of grits cost about 10 cents in 1958 and produced a week of breakfasts.
Dang.
This belonged to the Carolina Piedmont and the Georgia Wiregrass country in a way that was inseparable from those places and those people. When those people left the land for factory jobs in northern cities, grits and red-eye gravy could not follow. A drive-through biscuit replaced it. Something irreplaceable was lost, and nobody held a ceremony.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people still eat grits. People keep telling me I should try grits. I still don't know what it is. I know it's cornmeal or something not roughly cut and whatever. I've kind of been looking into it and how we get it in Australia, but obviously we can't get it in Australia. I'll have to look into it a little bit more, but I'm pretty sure people are still eating grits. Maybe not for breakfast, maybe not all the time, but I'm sure it's still out there.
Irreplaceable was lost, and nobody held a ceremony. Number 9. Buttermilk biscuits and sorghum. The biscuit itself was the skill. Flour, lard, buttermilk, salt, and baking soda were mixed fast and handled as little as possible. The dough was cut with an overturned glass and baked in a hot oven until the tops blistered gold. Mothers who could make proper biscuits were known for it, the way athletes are known for specific gifts. It took years to develop, and it could be ruined in seconds by overworking the dough. Split open, steaming, and drizzled with sorghum syrup so dark and thick it moved slowly in cold weather. This breakfast cost almost nothing, and it was the best thing most families ate all day. When Pillsbury introduced refrigerated dough in a cardboard tube in the 1960s, homemade biscuits began a decline they have never recovered from. A skill passed from mother to daughter for 200 years was replaced by something that pops when you twist it open. Number 8. HO cakes with syrup. Cornmeal, water, and salt were stirred together and poured onto a greased cast iron skillet, flipped once when bubbles broke the surface. They were served with cane syrup or sorghum while still hot enough to melt everything poured over them. Named for the field tool once used to cook them over open fires, hoe cakes had been a staple of rural black kitchens across the South since before the Civil War and remained so through the 1950s. A single bag of cornmeal could produce hoe cakes for a month.
Damn,
the Great Migration carried families north and west, and the hoe cake stayed behind. Children who had eaten them every morning in Mississippi woke up in Chicago eating white toast. The tradition broke quietly, without ceremony. Today they persist in the kitchens of grandmothers who refuse to forget. Everywhere else, they are gone. Number 7. Egg in a hole. A slice of bread with a circle cut from its center using the rim of a drinking glass, fried in butter. An egg cracked into the hole.
Do you know, we have that in Australia. We call it toad in a hole, which is different to the toad in a hole in the UK. We've had that in Australia for, I don't know how long, however long, you know.
Cooked until the white set and the yolk stayed soft. The circle fried alongside as a dipper. This was the cleverest breakfast trick in the 1950s kitchen, because it solved the specific problem of children who would eat neither plain toast nor plain fried eggs, but would somehow eat both when they arrived together looking like a magic trick. 1 egg, 1 slice of bread, a pat of butter, 3 cents. Nothing wasted. The name changed by region. Toad in a hole, one-eyed Jack.
That's what we call it.
Egg in a basket. When frozen waffles promised mothers they could skip the skillet entirely, the skillet was abandoned and the magic trick went with it. Number 6. Clabber and cornbread.
What the hell is Clabber? Cornbread I love. I've made cornbread here at home. I love cornbread. Oh my God. is one of my favorites.
Clabber was
Absolutely
raw
delicious.
milk allowed to sour at room temperature until it thickened into a tangy curd, somewhere
Ew.
between buttermilk and yogurt.
Okay.
Mothers crumbled cold cornbread into a glass, poured Clabber over it, and handed it to children who ate it as their entire breakfast.
Oh.
The lactic acid fermentation in Clabber produced beneficial bacteria that modern science has confirmed are identical to those found in probiotic supplements selling
I guess it'd just be like yogurt almost. Kind of very similar to natural yogurt.
Modern
Okay.
science has confirmed are identical to those found in probiotic supplements selling for $15 a bottle. A food that cost nothing was providing what an expensive supplement now promises. When pasteurized milk became standard in the 1950s, the bacteria that made Clabber were killed before the milk left the
So you
processing
can't
facility.
make it anymore.
A centuries-old breakfast tradition was erased by public health policy that solved one genuine problem and inadvertently destroyed something that had been quietly sustaining people for generations. Number 5. Water gravy and biscuits. When there was no milk for white gravy and no country ham for red-eye gravy, there was water gravy. Flour browned in lard until nutty and toasted, then thinned with plain water, seasoned with salt and black pepper, and poured over biscuits. It was the poorest breakfast on this list, and in some ways the most important one. Water gravy kept families alive during the Depression, and it persisted through the 1950s in pockets of Appalachia, where poverty never fully retreated between wars. The skill was in the browning. The flour had to go dark enough to develop real flavor that could mask the absence of everything else. Mothers who could make water gravy taste like something were performing alchemy, a craft that required both skill and will in equal measure. This breakfast has no modern equivalent. It survives only in the memories of people who were poor enough to need it and honest enough to remember it without shame. Number 4. Fried bread dough. When bread was baked at home, which through the early 1950s it often still was, mothers pinched off balls of raw yeast dough, flattened them, and dropped them into hot lard. The dough puffed golden in 2 minutes, hollow in the center and crisp on the outside, dusted with sugar while still hot. The cost was nothing beyond a few minutes beside the stove, and children stood there watching through the steam with the particular intensity they reserve for things they know are about to be extraordinary. The smell was warm yeast and hot fat and caramelizing sugar all at once. When store-bought bread replaced home baking in most American households through the late 1950s, fried dough left the weekday kitchen entirely. You can find it at state fairs today for $5. In 1954, it was free, and it was better, and it happened in kitchens where someone loved you. Number 3. Pot liquor and cornbread. The liquid left in the pot after boiling collard greens or turnip greens with fatback was dark and salty, and deeply flavored with every mineral and vitamin that had cooked out of the vegetables. Mothers saved it in a jar the way they saved bacon grease, reheated it the next morning, and poured it over split cornbread. Researchers at Tuskegee University documented the nutritional content of pot liquor as early as the 1930s and found that families who consumed it regularly had measurably lower rates of anemia and calcium deficiency. We threw that away. We poured liquid nutrition down the sink because it looked like dishwater and smelled old-fashioned. Then we spent billions developing supplements to replace what it gave us for free. Number 2. Rice and milk. Cold leftover rice from the previous night's supper, placed in a bowl, covered with cold whole milk, and sprinkled with sugar. No cooking, no dishes. 30 seconds from pantry to...
Can you imagine telling somebody to eat cold rice? Because the first thing they're going to say is, oh, no, I'm going to get food poisoning. Food poisoning if you eat cold rice.
With sugar. No cooking, no dishes. 30 seconds from pantry to table. This was breakfast for millions of American families across the South and in farm households where rice was what was left when everything else was gone. The rice was already cooked. The milk was already bought. The sugar cost 4 cents a pound. Together, they produced something with texture and quiet satisfaction that no box
It's like
cereal...
a rice pudding, but you would have that hot. You wouldn't have it. Well, I guess you could have it cold if you already made it. Okay.
Has ever genuinely replicated despite 60 years of trying. Rice Krispies arrived and called themselves an innovation. The families who had been eating cold rice and milk for generations did not argue. They just quietly stopped doing what they had always done and started buying the box. That is how most of this list was lost. Not with any argument, just with a box and a mascot, and the slow erosion of a habit that had never needed defending because it had never been challenged before. Number 1. Biscuits and Sawmill gravy. Flour cooked in pan drippings until the raw smell burned off and the mixture turned golden. Then whole milk was added slowly while someone stirred without stopping, until the gravy thickened and went glossy and white with flecks of black pepper throughout. It was poured over biscuits made from flour, lard, buttermilk, and salt, and baked hot enough to blister. This was the breakfast that fed the American working class for the better part of a century. Miners, mill workers, farmhands, railroad crews. The whole meal cost less than a dime in 1955 and kept a person working until midday without hunger interrupting anything. The USDA promoted versions of it during wartime because it was cheap, calorie-dense, and producible from shelf-stable ingredients. Then the cereal companies arrived with their advertising budgets and their pictures of smiling children eating from bowls, and biscuits and Sawmill gravy went from a daily breakfast to weekend nostalgia within a single generation. It is still made in the South. It never entirely died there. But the daily rhythm of it, the automatic morning competence of a woman who could make proper gravy before the sun was fully up, is gone from most American kitchens, and the families those kitchens fed are the poorer for it in ways that a box of cereal has never once made up for. Here is the challenge. Make one of these this week. Try the cornmeal mush on a cold morning and eat it with sorghum. Try the fried egg sandwich the way it was meant to be made, and ask yourself what $8 at a brunch counter is actually buying you. Try the potato cakes from last night's leftovers and notice what it feels like to waste nothing. Then come back and tell me which one you tried and whether your grandmother would have recognized what you made. Because these were not just breakfasts. They were proof that the people who had the least knew most about feeding a family from almost nothing. And that knowledge is worth more right now than it has ever been.
I could get what he's, trying to say in that video. We definitely have lost some of that art of being able to feed the family on the cheaper side of what it is at the moment. Groceries are ridiculously expensive, but trying to use everything, trying to retain that skill as well. Biscuits and gravies is still popular as far as I know. We have made it here at home. We've made it a couple of times since I've done it on camera, which is absolutely fantastic. Some of the ingredients we can't get, you got to get it, especially bought in and whatever. We don't really use cornmeal in Australia. So you got to get it, but I would definitely, if I could, I would definitely have that at least twice a week. Biscuits and gravy, probably not real good for you because it is a lot of flour and whatever else, but it's delicious, absolutely delicious. So grits we don't get here in Australia. So, but obviously fried eggs and stuff, we still use that on a pretty regular basis. So. I don't eat cereal myself. Too much sugar, too much, too many, empty carbs and whatever else. But I could see what he was trying to, a little doom and gloom in the video, everything's this and that and whatever else. But I could see his overall intent was, what? It's costing us so much these days. We have to learn how to do better. All of these skills that maybe not our parents, but depending on obviously how old you are, maybe your parents, maybe your grandparents, especially your great-grandparents would know all of these tricks, about trying to get the most out of the grocery, cost that you can, and never wasting anything, So I was always told if I didn't eat everything for dinner, I would have it for breakfast the next day. If not, then I would have it for lunch, and then I'd have it for dinner. I would definitely eat everything. It may, you may do it over a couple of days, especially if it was liver. I used to hate liver when I was a kid. I can eat it now. I used to hate liver. But you have to eat it. You're not getting a special meal. No. That's it. You cook one meal for the family. If you don't like it, well, you'll eat it tomorrow. And then you'll eat it the next day. Yeah, we definitely didn't waste any food, that's for sure. So, interesting video. Let me know what you thought of that one, guys. Let me know if you still make any of those breakfasts that he said were lost to time. So, guys, thank you very much for joining me today. Make sure you stay safe, and I'll definitely see you in the next reaction video. Oh, you're still here? You want more content? Why don't you check out my Patreon down here? You'll get plenty more content and some exclusive videos over there too. If not, why not check out this one over here?